Hi everybody, welcome to another video here at Abraham's Table Farm. This week is the summer solstice and we're hitting that mid-climax of the season where day length starts to decrease and we move into the second half of the year, and that is a pretty significant milestone here on the farm because it does change a lot of things that are happening here, and it also just kind of shifts the mood to the third quarter of the year. You may or may not know that day length actually governs a lot of plant activity and animal behavior as well. As day length descends and decreases, that is the signal to many plants and animals that winter is coming, which encourages them to move into reproductive functions or finish up their reproductive functions so that they can prepare the next generation before winter and death comes. So in the plant world, that looks like flowering. A lot of plants begin to start flowering more aggressively at this time because they need to develop their fruit and develop their seeds within that fruit and drop those seeds into the ground where they're safely contained through the winter before germinating the next spring. So a lot of annual plants are going to finish their flowering process around this time of year and start developing fruit, and that's when we start have a lot of our fruiting crops are in this third quarter of the year. So tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and peppers and all these plants where we're actually eating the fruit of the plant have been flowering leading up to the solstice and around the solstice, and now fruit development is really going to take center stage for this next portion of the year. Even some of the animals and their reproductive cycles are affected by day length. Our chickens, for example, and birds generally, when they lay eggs and when their egg production increases and decreases is determined by day length and the change in length of the days, really specifically. So there's a lot of nuance there to animal and plant activity that we as farmers are in constant response to and managing. And we do some things like add extra light to the chicken and stuff to kind of counteract the natural shifts in these things and make sure that we have a steady flow of food production for our people. But it is, regardless of that, something that affects our kind of work significantly, and we feel that in our bodies and in our rhythms throughout the day. So we're doing a lot more of plant care at this time of the year, trellising and pruning. We'll begin to start harvesting a lot of those fruiting crops. We'll move out of the leafing period where we're growing a lot of leaves and lettuces and kales and salads and things where you're eating the leaf, and we're moving now into the fruiting season when a lot of those fruits are coming. And so that is kind of the name of the game here, especially in this particular location and climate. And we feel it as well in our rhythms of work, because we shift away from initiating things and starting things and towards tending things and maximizing the production within what is there already. So less planting, we will still continue to plant for a little while yet, less starting of projects, less prepping the ground, all these things that are preparatory and initiating and starting. These activities kind of start to fade out starting now, and they'll be like really finishing up in August, but they begin to decrease and we increase our maximizing of what is already there. So we need to get the most out of our plants. The plants that are in the ground and prepared, we need to fertilize them and trellis them and prune them and take care of what is here growing in the garden soil now and make it flourish as much as possible. So even the soil organisms in the garden and below the plants that are sustainable plants, we're trying to give them the best environment and give them the capacity to bloom and flourish as much as possible. So that becomes our energy. No more new projects, no more new goals for the year, no more new things. It's all what is here, how far did we get in the spring, and how can we make the most of that? So make the most of it is kind of the mood that takes over in the third quarter of the year. And then, it shifts again in the fourth quarter when we start to just reap what has happened and prepare to let go of it all and to give thanks for what has happened. That's kind of the last quarter of the year. But right now, it's all about maximizing what is here this summer and what is going on. And hopefully you guys are maximizing your summers as well and enjoying them as much as you can. We've definitely had a maximum of rain and mosquitoes this year. It's been an incredibly wet spring. We've gotten rain, seems like every day, but definitely every week, multiple times. And the ground is really wet and it's holding that moisture. The garden is doing well because of it. There's lots of growth. The grass in the pasture is doing well. There's tons of growth there because of all that rain. It has made the mosquitoes flourish, which has been pretty frustrating and annoying to work in. And it's getting to be a little bit too much moisture. The ground is having a hard time absorbing that water. The puddles last longer, and moisture can be a problem for some creatures. Just living in moist conditions can be stressful on certain plants and animals. So it's getting to be a little bit of a stress point, this much moisture, though it hasn't really gotten out of hand yet. And we've been, increasing our soil health and the structure of our soil so that it is still absorbing a lot of moisture, and hopefully it will hold that moisture and give it to the plants slowly over a long period of time, even if the rain does kind of taper off from here on out. We'll see if that happens. But the garden is doing well, lots of crops. As I said already, the summer crops are coming in, and we'll start to see more and more of those in the store. And we do ask that you place your orders. One thing that has been a challenge, aside from the mosquitoes and the rain this year, is sales volume. It seems like there has been a general pullback, and even other businesses that we've talked to have experienced this, like a softer demand, more of a pullback in sales, kind of maybe even economy-wide, some kind of pullback. And we've definitely experienced it. As a direct marketing farm, we feel directly what is happening in the marketplace, and if there is a kind of pullback, we feel it immediately. It affects our bottom line, it affects exactly all of the sales and a lot of activity that we are doing as we engage with customers. We're on the front lines of environmental swings and weather swings. They hit us and impact us strongly. We have very little protection from what happens in the climate, environment, weather system. We also have very little protection or buffer between us and the marketplace. People either buy or they don't, and we feel it if they do or they don't. So that's a challenge that is difficult for us. We also, like many small farmers, struggle to market ourselves and struggle to get out there and talk about our farm. We would really like to be focusing on doing very good work and careful, attentive, respectful work with the land and the plants and the animals, and making sure that the nutrition is in our food, but that becomes a challenge to really communicate clearly to the general public how our food is significantly different than your average food in the grocery store, that it's not the same thing, that it's not just organic, but this is nutrient-dense food that really sustains people and nourishes them and gives them health. So we don't do a great job of talking about that. We would appreciate your help if any way you see people who need healthy food, who want healthy food. If you can mention us to them and help get the word out, it would be extremely helpful to us so that we can focus on this work, growing this food and delivering this food and processing and packaging this food. But if you could help in that way, that would be great, because that has proven to be one of the bigger challenges this year, is just getting the word out that we have a lot of really good food that is different from your grocery store food, that is more nourishing than your grocery store food, that has been produced in ways that you can be proud of, ways that are connecting to humans and the earth, and between plants and animals and humans and building community, and encouraging people to slow down and enjoy their physical embodied humanness. That is all stuff that we are working to promote through this type of farming, and if you think there's somebody out there who would appreciate it, we would appreciate it if you helped us by telling them about it. So let's walk around and see what's coming up in the garden. There are some new crops coming, and just get some visuals on where your food's coming from and what is happening at this particular moment in time and this particular place on the earth. So let's go see. Here we'll start in the greenhouse. You can see that there's a lot less transplants coming out to be transplanted into the garden, and again, that's just evidence of where we are in the season and the shift in attention that happens here on the farm. So we're initiating less seeding. We're starting fewer seeds here in the greenhouse. There's less new things getting going in the garden. So still stuff is going on, and that will happen till August, but a lot less than in early spring when that greenhouse is just jam-packed with little seedlings. In the garden, we've got some of these tarps on beds where we're pulling crops out, and we're letting the old crop that was spinach before just die and wither away underneath the tarp without any sunlight. And then that will be removed and replanted. So we're getting into second and third plantings on certain beds in the garden. There's still a lot of young seedlings coming up. You can see all these plantings of leeks and salad mixes and stuff that are there. So those will be ready in the second half. Still leafy things and new plants going in, but the end. Up here, we've got squash and zucchini plants, and you can see some yellow flowers in there. These plants are flowering and starting to produce fruit, so we'll have some zucchinis in the next couple weeks. A little bit at first, but ramping up as we get going. Scapes here. This is the garlic bed. We got a ton of garlic, and it looks really good this year. It's definitely the best garlic crop that we've had, but you can see, get up close, these scapes, these curly stalks that are growing out of the middle of the plants. They're difficult to see on the camera, but these are actually the flower that would be growing up out of the plant. Stand up, and that's a little bud there that would open up into a big garlic flower. And so, as I was saying, as we hit the solstice, plants start shooting up their flowers. They're trying to set a flower that then gets pollinated and becomes the seed for more plants. And that's the effort of the garlic plant to do that right here. But what we like to do is clip these off. We will just snap them off and harvest them as something to eat. They taste good. It's a really mild green garlic, fresh garlic kind of flavor. We like to roast these things. They're kind of cool curlicues. You can dice them up real small, put them in your eggs or whatever you want, really, for just a fresh garlic flavor. But there's also some physiological reasons why we do that, because the plant is putting a lot of energy into its flower right now, as many plants would try to do, as I've explained. But by snipping off the flower, in the case of garlic, the garlic has a second method for reproduction, which is through its clove, which the head of garlic splits into all the cloves, and each one of those cloves is a bulb, could be a new plant. So that's a way that the garlic plant has of reproducing and multiplying. And so if we snap off the flower and eliminate its capacity to set seed, it will then divert its energy down into developing that bulb and those cloves as its other survival mechanism. And so if we want really big heads of garlic with big cloves, the best thing that we can do is to snip off the flower as it comes and before it blooms, so that all the energy from the plant goes downward into that head. So we are doing that, both as a means of harvesting a delicious and very limitedly available seasonal crop that can only come because of the changes in daylight. It's difficult to make garlic scapes happen at any other time in the year. You'd have to really control day length and lighting on the plants and stuff, which is, kind of impossible to do outside, or very difficult anyway. We're harvesting something delicious to eat for our customers to buy, and we're also tending the plant and forcing its energy into a different part of the plant, which will be another crop later on. So we got a lot of garlic scapes right now. They're something that you should feast on at this particular time in the year, because they are so specific to this moment in time. And that's really what we want to encourage people to do, is to get involved with the actual time that is passing and eat seasonally. And this is a perfect example of this. This only comes at a particular time in the summer, and you should eat it while it's here and enjoy it all the way. Try some new recipes with it and just go bonkers on garlic scapes, because they only come now and then they will be gone. And it's really fun to have your eating rhythms and even your life rhythms very connected to particular times in the year, and people have that in a general sense all over the place. You probably pretty much only go to the beach during the summertime. We only have Christmas during wintertime, those kinds of things. And garlic scapes are just another place where you can enjoy a particular moment in time and link that moment to something special. So that's that. We also have cauliflower and broccoli. Some of these are bolting. You can see there, if you remember, broccoli and cauliflower are actually the flowers of a plant. And before the flowers all the way open, it's more like a bud. It's a closed, tiny closed set of flowers that makes up a broccoli or a cauliflower head. But here they've kind of shot off taller and they're opening into small yellow flowers because we didn't get to harvesting this, or perhaps they're a little bit under stress. When a plant is under stress, it will move towards reproductive and flowering faster. If you feed it well, then it will not be under stress, and it will slow down that process of flowering. So some of our plants are actually a little bit under stress because of the excessive moisture, and there's some bugs that develop in those times and stuff too. So these ones were a little bit past their prime. We didn't harvest them quite enough, and maybe some stress as well to cause them to start bolting a little bit more. But yeah, flowering plants are what we're getting to at this time in the season. So broccoli, cauliflower, garlic scapes are all three really good examples of that. In some of these greenhouses where we have tomato plants, they have been flowering for a little while yet, and we have small fruits on the plants. Here's a few down here, so you have this fruit flowering branch, and then behind it is the fruit developing where the flower was. So fruit is developing now, and will slowly be ripening, and we'll be harvesting it pretty soon. More tomato plants, and it'll become a big job, a weekly job that we do, where these are just trellised up to the rafters as those plants grow. And again, we're not planting new ones, we're tending what is there and then giving it the care to maximize its fruit production. So there's a lot we can do by snipping off different leaves or different shoots, and controlling how many flowers are opening and how many fruit are developing at a time on a plant. These are all things that we can do to encourage maximum yield from the plants that are already there, which is the strategy and the name of the game. Peas are flowering and setting seed. You've been enjoying those. Those are also limited to a very specific moment in time. We encourage you to enjoy them while they're here. We've also got some other crops as well that are new. We've got carrots. Some of the roots have developed, so leaves come first and then roots and fruits come after that. So here in these beds we have beets. They're sizing up pretty nicely. I don't know if you can see that very well, but beets are coming. They're about this big. We'll have some in the store moving forward. And then we've got a bunch of carrot beds here, tons and tons of carrots that will be coming out of the garden slowly. This is the oldest planting here, and then they get younger and younger and younger and younger and younger over to here, and we'll just start to harvest over here, and we'll just be working through all these beds of harvesting over the next 20 odd weeks. So you can expect to have a flow of carrots coming. We even grew a little bit of potatoes over here, and they're flowering, you can see there, but lots of things in the garden. Almost every bed is full of something. Some beds, like I said, are under a tarp where an initial crop has been ripped out and the next thing is going in the ground. But everything is full and abundant here in the garden. So enjoy it, soak it up, tell your friends, get in there and shop, and get in there quickly, because we do sell out of a lot of things. When it's there, it's posted initially Thursday, Friday. Orders come in all weekend, and if you don't get in there quick, certain things, especially if something's new, can very likely be sold out. So get in there and place your orders. Let's go see the pasture and the chickens out there. Here I am here in the pasture. This is a spot I've stood several times this season already, looking down the pasture to the south. This is where all of the winter bale grazing happened this past winter. So our dairy cow and her calves were eating round bales here and laying down a lot of manure. All that hay runs through their rumen, gets inoculated with the biology in their stomachs, comes out the other end as powerful fertilizer for the ground. This area before that was invaded with brush from the forest on this side. Saplings, bushes, brambles, all kinds of things, and very little grass. And it was difficult for us to graze this area because there was so much brush. We definitely could not bring pasture pens through here. And if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you know that our animals and all the various ways that we manage our animals are the tools in our toolbox for revitalizing pasture land. And these pasture pens, which are full of our broiler chickens, are one of our most powerful early responders for treating worn out pasture. So when ground is worn out, There's not a lot of growth happening, not a lot of photosynthesis happening, feeding the soil biology. We bring these pasture pens through, and these chickens, which eat mostly a grain diet, a high protein grain diet, are laying down a lot of manure in where these pens are set. Every day we move the pens forward and they give another dose of manure for that spot. So it gives a very even, consistent distribution of chicken manure, which is really potent for growing grass. And so we'll take the worst spot in the pasture, run these pasture pens throughout that area, laying down a very even layer of manure. And then what happens after that is a really big bounce back of growth following that manure application. And so every year, as we grow these chickens and feed our community with nutrient-dense, pasture-raised, soy-free chicken, we are also feeding our soil with nutrient-rich chicken manure that grows that ground and increases our carrying capacity, the capacity of our fields to sustain life. But we couldn't do that here in this spot. Even though it was one of the worst areas, we couldn't get these pasture pens into that area because there was just so much brush and saplings and brambles. And these pens need a fairly clean surface to be able to move through because we drag them forward day by day by day. And so if there's sticks and saplings, they get totally blocked. So it wasn't until we had mowed down the brush last year and then had the cows with the bales stomping the ground and killing off those saplings that we're then able to finally bring our pasture pens in. And we're excited to watch this progress. So we've seen the bale grazing and all the manure that came from that. I showed you that early in the spring. You can go back and watch that video if you want. And you can see there's a lot of green grass growing down there because of that. So much so that we actually had to mow it before these pasture pens could come through because the grass itself was so tall. And that's fine. The pens do a lot better with freshly grazed or mowed grass anyways, so that the manure that the chickens lay goes all the way down to the soil surface rather than laying on top of grass that's just been matted down. But we already saw a big response from the cows, and now these pens are just on the beginning of their trek through this area. They're laying down manure up in this top end of the field, and they're heading down the field over the next couple weeks, laying down their manure. And so I'll return to this spot later on in the season, and you'll be able to see just how green and beautiful the grass is that comes after these guys. Let me just go a little closer. You can see these birds are really comfortable in their pens, just lounging. They're protected by these pens. They have shade to go under in the back half. They have sun to go under if they want that. They have their true white feathers on them so they can regulate their temperature. They've got troughs of feed and clean water. These birds are really happy, really content in these pens, and every day we're moving them from where they've laid their manure forward to the grass that's clean ahead of them, where they can snip off fresh, tender young leaves, eat some bugs, and just lounge on clean ground every day. So these birds are really well taken care of. They have everything they need. They're perfectly content. And that's largely due to Sam's work as a pasture manager. He's coming out here every day, multiple times a day, to check on them and give them everything we need. And we really believe in that we as humans have the capacity to give our attention and our work and our time to serving these creatures and the plants and the landscape around us. And from that will generate a lot of health and energy and abundance that sustains up back to sustaining the humans in our community. And it's through healthy relationships, us being attentive to them and serving them, and healthy relational dynamics in our community, healthy interdependences between cows and chickens and plants and humans, all these healthy relational communities that can provide that nourishment for our physical bodies and that community web that sustains us emotionally and spiritually, and provide for a kind of peaceful, human, specific in place and time experience that is so rewarding. So that's the mission here at the farm is, yes, producing nutritious food in healthy ways that restores landscapes, but really tending to the human body and the human experience and the human relationships all around us. So we'll come back to this spot many times this season so you can see how it progresses, but I just want to show you we're just getting started with the first batch of pasture pens running down this area, and what was brush and very little grass is going to be totally transformed in the course of just one season. And you can see over here, there's a spot where it wasn't mowed, and you can see the ring where the round bale was and the cows were, and what's growing around, except for where they stomped a little bit too heavily, is lush green grass. There would have been almost no green grass before we brought the cows through. It would have been just kind of a mossy, thin, flimsy growth that was going in this whole area. But one layer of animal management application, and we've got green growth. A second type of animal moving through in a controlled, well-managed way. We'll give it another dose of manure. And by the end of the season, this will look like a totally different field than what it looked like just last year. So that's the efficacy of really good farming. And all that time, through all that work of restoring this landscape, also producing that nutritious food that is so different from what's in the grocery store and so deeply nourishing to human bodies and building up healthy human communities. So that's the work we're doing here. Thank you for supporting us. Please go place your orders in the store this week and help us spread the word, because that is, again, one of our biggest challenges this year is connecting with the few people that are out there spread out among the normal modern American population that understand that nourishing food is really critical, and being connected to the land and connected to your farmer and connected to your community is essential as well. And we need to find those people and connect to them. There's a lot of them out there, but they're difficult to connect with. So you can help us through your social networks to spread the word and help us feed and nourish and engage our communities. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.